Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pixelated Echoes. This is episode 34. It's February 23rd, 2025. Of course, I'm your host, 3-Bit, and we got a great show for you guys today as we return from a very lengthy break. Going to be talking about some things that have been happening in the gaming space. Appreciate it, everyone, for jumping on into our shows. It's always appreciated, never expected. And thanks to our audio listeners and our viewers in the future. Thanks for checking us out as well. See, a couple of people already jumping in. Appreciate you guys. I seen. I took a sneak peek in Web Dave's chat and stuff, and a couple of people shouting us out over there. So appreciate y'all. So yeah, let's just jump straight into the introductions. We have the man who sits in the co-chair, who makes these episodes happen alongside me, the real life Felix the Cat, the racing prodigy, my co-host, the Fuzzy Belvedere. How you doing today, man? And what have you been playing?
Well, I'm doing great. Glad to be here with you. Man, it's been a bit of a break, but man, a lot of Avowed game playing in between. Haven't been playing Forza Horizon 5 or GT7 as much as I would like, but Avowed is got my full attention now, and it's definitely an enjoyable RPG. Having fun finding stuff, just running around the map. And the thing I like about the map is just that if it looks like you can get there, yeah, you can get there. Or you can drop down to there or climb up there or find a way to like break through a wall or something. There's always a way to get somewhere kind of thing. But having so much fun with it and the combination of the magic and having certain weapons that have like element damage on them as well. It's chef's kiss right now. But man, it's great to be back. So much fun. Glad we got everybody in the chat today. Yeah, we're gonna have some fun with these topics. So what have you been up to playing and how you been?
Yeah, I've been good, man. I've been busy. We've been talking a little bit behind the scenes. I've just been in commercial land. Been working on a couple of different movie trailers, stuff coming out. Um, Usually I work on I like hinted to you guys stuff I do. Like I do the Affleck commercials. I do like Holiday Inn commercials and stuff like that. So like jumped out of the gaming industry, mostly working in the ad space. Um, but now I'm doing more some movie stuff. So I'm actually it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. I wish I could talk about. I told Fuzzy what it was, but eventually I'll be able to tell you guys. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty
Oh
cool
yeah.
stuff. Outside of that, I have been also playing Avowed. Really digging it. I I think it's great. Like when you talk about like you can see something in the distance and then you can actually like try and get there. Like that's been really fun for me. It's super rewarding if you like are doing some of the side quests. So we'll get into Avowed because that is our first topic. But I've personally been really enjoying it. I've been playing nothing but really that. I did before Avowed. I played a little bit more of the Hogwarts game or the Quidditch Champions game.
Mhm.
I maxed out all my characters, so now I'm just like, eh. Now I'm done with it. Like it's like once you beat the game, that's there's not like a lot of incentive to keep playing, in my opinion. Like they don't.
Mhm.
It's just that's it. Like it's like, oh well,
Mhm.
dang. But if you guys like it has really solid gameplay in my opinion. Like the Quidditch Champions, that's the flying mechanics are better than Hogwarts. I didn't really like the flying in Hogwarts, so like they tuned it up a little bit more. So um it's like a solid experience here. It kind of reminded me of the Knockout Champion game, or like what's the knockout? It's like the dodgeball game. I can't remember.
Oh,
It's
the
like
Rumble or Rumble something.
yeah,
I
Rumble
can't remember.
for something. It's whatever that dodgeball game was in terms of
Hmm.
like how solid the game felt, and then like over time could get really good at it. And it has that same feeling.
Okay.
So definitely I recommend it. It was on sale. I got it for like, I don't know, it was like $5 or something when
Can't
it
beat
was on
that.
sale. So I was like, yeah, might as well. I judged it because of its art style. I'm like, oh, this is kid game. Um, which is weird of me again because I watch the most terrible movies and play terrible games. So I don't know why I had that had that thought, but really fun. I enjoyed it. But for the most part, I've been playing Avowed, and we'll definitely get into that in a bit. So if you guys like our content, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell to be notified when we do our next show. We're getting back into the rhythm of it, not going back on break anytime soon that I can think of. So we're back into the rhythm. So thank you guys for checking up on us. Big Mad Mo, E Ranks, Staccato, Nisa, Hauer, and Ray Old. Welcome you guys to the show. All right, so let's jump straight into our first topic, which is Avowed. So we got Fuzzy's gameplay on the screen right now. Um, And at first I was like, "Oh, I'm ahead of you," but then I saw some stuff you were doing. I'm like, "Ooh, I can't do that yet." Actually, you might be ahead of me. And I see you have some. I'm looking at like some of your inventory. Like, dang, you got a superb one. Yeah. I don't got the stuff you got. So you've been playing longer than me.
I've been hoarding supplies to upgrade. Like
Hmm,
it's a bit of a grind, but it's not as bad as many other games. Like you don't have like 10 rare items that you have to find, and there's only 10 of them in the game, type of thing to upgrade stuff. But yeah,
hmm.
that was the big thing. Like I probably fought the same spiders and same lizard people over over
Oh, I
in
didn't even know you
certain
could do that.
spots.
Yeah,
But yeah, I've been grinding a bit just to
heck
get
yeah,
stuff upgraded.
yeah. I need to start doing that honestly. So Avowed is finally launched, man. It launched to some pretty great reviews. I've been, like I said in the intro, only playing Avowed. I am hooked. I'm several hours in. I think I'm a level 11 or 12. So I didn't. Yeah, Fuzzy's like level 30. So I'm interested in hearing his thoughts on it. But I've been liking the game so far. It really rewards you for adventuring out. Had a moment in the game where someone just mentioned like, hey, there's something suspicious going on in like north of the town, and normally I like, I don't always pay attention to dialogue. I'm just like, just going with the flow of the game. But this time, for some reason, I was really tuned in. I was like, okay, north of the town, all right, I'll check that out. I got some time. So
Mhm.
um it was like there it's near the waterfall or something like that. So I was like, all right, let me go check
Yeah,
it out. I did it, and it was really impressive how much that changed the trajectory of the main quest. Like I think, did you do the same thing, Fuzzy? You know what I'm kind of talking about?
yeah,
That impressed me. Like like that. I'm pretty sure that was a side optional mission that you could do, where it's basically like these people are getting ready to raid this village, and they're just kind of chilling in this cave, and you have the option of going to that cave and wrecking their souls, which is what I did. Um, and then in the main mission, they're like, "Oh, you saved the town because you decided to do that." I was like, "Oh shoot!" Like I didn't know it was that big, you know.
yeah,
So and Avowed has that's just one example, but Avowed has a couple different examples of that where you have your main mission, but your side missions can intertwine with the main missions, and be just as important, which I don't always see in these type of games. Like I love it when a game has it so a side mission is almost just as important as the main mission, and it kind of blends where you're like, oh, the side mission has just as good cinematics or quality as the main ones. So as as I was playing Avowed, that was a theme I started noticing that was happening. I noticed like I'm obsessed with like looting things. And because whenever you're like walking around, you can like hear the treasure chest noise, like the little tingle noise.
mhm,
And I'm like, ooh, where is it? Where is it? I'm looking around. And they have like a couple things where they'll have like a building that's locked off. And you're like, ooh, why is it locked? Where can I find the key? And then hours later, hours go by, and you are not playing the main mission anymore. You're just trying to figure out how to get into this house. So that's stuff I've been experiencing with Avowed. It's why it's taken me a bit because I'm just screwing around. I'm just like looting stuff, and I've been really enjoying it. So I want to read a review from Dual Shockers, see what they say about it. They say Avowed isn't what I expected, but I loved every second. It's the type of game I'll gladly play through again and again. A feat mode easier by its somewhat short runtime, Avowed proves that bigger isn't always better. Instead of making a game that tries to outsize everything on the market, Obsidian stayed true to its vision and delivered a polished experience that I fell in love with. As someone who replays Oblivion every year, it'll be hard to go back to those older Elder Scrolls games. After enjoying my time with Avowed's combat and characters, this is the RPG experience I've been wanting on Xbox, and Obsidian delivered big time. So, yeah, it's here. I mean, look, Obsidian is one of those teams for me, Fuzz, where they're just super talented, man. They have like a pedigree of specializing in like Bethesda like games. And Avowed is a solid game. One thing that really surprised me also was the visuals. Like, this is the first game where I haven't really felt the need to switch to performance. I know some people could go to performance, whatever. Like 99% of the time I'll go to performance, but for some reason I was like, oh well, dang, this is pretty. And I have a LG CX-TV, so maybe they have some things helping with the frame rate there. Dang, I have not switched to performance. I know it's not a solid 60. It doesn't feel like a solid 60. It's like, I think it's like 45 to 60 maybe. That's just,
You're probably playing the 40 mode, which I think has the ray tracing and everything. So with your OG or LG TV, it's probably in 120 hertz mode, which
yeah.
makes it feel like almost like a smoother 60 kind of deal.
Yeah, it was like weird because I was like, I know this feels smooth, but I know it's not a full 60. Yeah, there's just something there. And I'm guessing my TV is doing a lot of work with like I have a 120 hertz type TV. So yeah, I've been really just liking the textures of the ground. I'm like, ooh, it's just super it's very good texture work. And again, the main missions, the side missions, the upgrade system seems fair. I was getting my butt kicked in the beginning of the game. I'm like, oh, this is going to be rough. Like, is this what I'm going to be going through? And then I ventured out into some side quests, found some great equipment, and now the tables are definitely turning. Now I got some dope weapons and stuff like that. So while it's a smaller experience compared to something like Skyrim, it's still super fleshed out, and it shows Xbox still has a ton of talented studios under its belt. So, Fuzz, what are your overall thoughts, man? I think it's freaking dope. But what are your thoughts?
Well, the only disagreement I'll have with the reviewers over at Dual Shockers is it sounds like they're not that they're doing a speed run, but they're probably sticking mainly to the story missions. The side missions and the exploration aspect is where this game flourishes, because you might be on the way to a main mission, but there's an argument on the way. You hear some of the townspeople arguing, or there's a guard inspecting somebody's cart, and you could help them out, or you could say, screw you guys, I got better things to do, kind of thing. But a lot of times when you help them, either you could find a supply that you could say, oh, I didn't find anything, and keep it, or you could say, yeah, this person had contraband, get them. And it's like, and then the guards will either kill that person or arrest them. Sometimes you can pick up the loot that they drop, type of deal. So there's so much to this thing where before you even get through or get to the area where the main mission stuff starts, you've already probably did 3 side missions and didn't even sign up to do a side mission. It's just like random things that you come across. And then the side missions, it's like you talk to one of the like vendors and they're like pissed off at the other vendor because that's their ex that lost something, or it's their sibling that is trying to run them out of business or something along those lines. And you can work out a deal, get either a certain supply or do a side mission for them. They might be able to help you do a even better upgrade to your weapon, or be able to get you a better, or build you a better weapon than what you're able to find at that time. And it's just like the most random stuff. Like you're there to buy like some potions, but now you have something that will help you, set up your sword to, set people on fire when you cut them, or a poison arrow thing for your bow. Or there's a lot more to this, and there's just like the subtle stuff that makes sense that nobody tells you. Like I know my buddy PTK was talking about cooking, and I know a lot of people were giving him flack on that, but the fact that you have that in this game is another added bonus. So that way you can have that buff for health and things like that before going into some of the missions, like stuff you would normally expect in like a Monster Hunter or maybe a bigger scale RPG, are in this with some added, quality of life things that are really helpful, like the weapon switching stuff, or the fact that you can transfer your encumbering equipment. Because if you're like me, you're picking up everything and you're either trying to sell it to the vendor or break it down, or you could send it to the camp, or you could sell stuff that's at the camp, kind of thing. So having all of those handy things that a lot of RPGs or other games overlook, having it in this game is so cool to have. But like for me, I think one of the other things I saw, I think Jamie Moran, another guy that is in the Xbox community on social media, was showing how sometimes you can cross the water a lot easier without having to worry about drowning, or things along those lines. Although, for the most part, you should be fine in a lot of the areas that you can swim. But the fact that you can freeze water, that's that's great as far as platforming and stuff like that. Because,
Yeah.
like I've said before, if it looks like that there's something up there, or that you could get there some sort of way, you're just either missing a piece, or you haven't found that secret wall yet, or something that you can knock out of the way, or explode, or burn, or whatever to get to it. But having all of those little things that add up to make it a fun experience, because I think they spent a lot of time making it so the traversal, like the parkour that you can do through the town, the fact that it feels like you have multiple ways to get to the same location is great. You could either go in through the front door, go around back, climb up the side, or go to the building across the street, kind of thing, and then hop across the roof or whatever. There's just so many ways to get around. And the fast travel system is another awesome thing. It's not like you have to fight to get those things, or pay to get that checkpoint, or clear all the enemies or anything. It's just, hey, you found that purple torch, okay, and you can always come back to it. Because there are some times where it's like, I'd rather explore. But if you've already explored, the back route back to the main town or something like that, sometimes it's easier just to do the fast travel, drop off the stuff that you need, clear your inventory, be less encumbered or whatever, upgrade some stuff, and then head right back to where you were. And I love those features in this game. But the combat does it for me. The little mini map, the fact that there's a mini map that gives you an idea of like things surrounding you. Like some of them are like the supplies, like the plants or food and things like that you can find. But sometimes you'll see an enemy and you're like, wait, I'm standing where the enemy should be and I don't see him. So maybe there's a cave under you, or a tunnel or something.
Mm.
So then you go to find, well, how do I get there? Because that enemy is probably there for some reason, and I see a little red thing because I'm just playing on normal. I don't know if it disappears if you play on the harder difficulties and stuff, but it's like, okay, I found the tunnel, and then you get there and it's like, all right, this enemy is poisonous. I didn't fight any poisonous enemies before, so I gotta keep my distance. But a lot of times when you find those like little secret caves or rooms and stuff, there's a better piece of armor there, or there's a better weapon there, or there's a much better spell book or something that enemy was guarding. And now you have like this item that would have probably taken you an extra couple of hours to upgrade what you had before to it. It's already got it beat, or maybe a whole new spell that you can cast that you couldn't do before, kind of thing. So there's just so much to this game. And I think I haven't looked at the time, but I think I'm like maybe 12 to 15 hours in. But most of that has been the first 5 hours in the opening area, and then the last 10 has been in the current area. But I've been grinding all of the supplies as far as upgrading stuff, finding ways of. And I know some people are like, "Oh, you're cheesing the vendors by buying and selling stuff." Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. As far as the stuff you find and breaking it down or reselling it and stuff, but I've been using the vendors to my advantage and just finding as many supplies. I haven't really done the cooking stuff because I've been mainly using the supplies for a little bit of health. Although I'm under the impression you get like a bigger buff if you do cook a meal or mix some of the ingredients and things like that. But been doing more so the crafting of the upgrade materials than any of the food so far. I've only found a few pieces of totems. I don't want to use guides just yet. I'll wait until I clear an area, and then I'll probably look at a guide of where I may have missed a totem
I feel like I
spot. But it's
found
like,
two.
yeah. Well, the thing is if you're all about that exploration, you're bound to find them because there's always like, hey, what's on the other side of that mountain? Like, okay, it looks like there's a little path that you can kind of like sidestep around the back of the mountain, and it's like, oh yeah, that okay, that's there's something hidden there. But there's just so much to this game. 15 hours in, I'm enjoying it. Um, I'm I said I've already done the grinding to upgrade stuff, and it's probably going to be for waste because there'll probably be even better stuff. Because like some of the stuff, like there's a sword I have, or no, a knife that I have and a glove that I have that are like flame damage along with without me even having to have the wand. So it's almost like I have that same, wizard ability, but with this knife and glove that I have. So there's just weird combinations that work with your build, or there's other things out there that I guess you can find that you can do the upgrades to, because I guess only legendaries are the ones you can do the imbuement or whatever they call it, where you do the I guess you select the second tier of the ability on that weapon. But I'm loving it so far. So much fun, so much to explore, and like I said, 15 hours in, I guess I'm in the second section, but it's like
Hmm.
it looks like it's a speck on the overall bigger map. And for something that's not a true open world, it's more of a hub world. It feels like a lot of mini open worlds. Like there are some games where the open world doesn't feel as big as some of these maps, and I love how they've set it up where okay, you get into the town. That's like a not really a fast travel, but that's like okay, a loading screen, you're in the town kind of thing. But like all around the town, the water, you can swim and find stuff, which Pong told me about something at the pier where you first get started. I didn't even think to go take a swim afterward to find a treasure chest or anything like that. Sorry if that's a
Oh
spoiler
yeah.
for anyone, but like I've been that guy that's like, oh, they want me to go to the right, I'm going to the left. What's in that cave? Okay, I explored that cave. It looks like something is at the top of that castle. Let me see if I can get there. Oh, I gotta just jump over here, or oh, okay. So if I go back and set this other branch thing on fire, then there's a passageway for me to cut off the hatchets or whatever type of thing that you got to avoid and stuff. So yeah, it's a ton of fun. I'm enjoying it, and I can't wait to get back to playing it.
Yeah, yeah, same. Let me shout out Web Dave again. Basically bring in some people in raiding from the council. So appreciate everybody for dropping on in, liking and subscribing. Helps. I want to get to some custom emojis eventually, so appreciate y'all letting me get to that goal. That's basically what my main goal is. So appreciate y'all. Torino, Rashun, Anonymous Boss, shouting us out. Dave Reezy, Negative Zero, Abdel 114, Music 72, subscribing. Dave Reezy, Drake Williams, Mac 22, goes on and on. Appreciate y'all for dropping on in. Um, yes, everything you said, Fuzz. Like, here's the thing with like what you mentioned, like the pier and stuff, like
Mhm.
or going to the left and going to the right. That's something this game does really really well. And unfortunately, I feel like with reviewers, that is not their mentality. Maybe I mean, if they're complaining about the length of the game, because I've been playing this game for I don't even know. I'm not even close to Fuzzy's level, but I've put in like 20, 30 hours, something like that already.
Wow.
Um, and I'm just not doing the main missions. I'm just kind of just venturing off, going doing side missions, taking a lot of pictures, honestly, just looking around. Um, and so Avowed, what this game does really well so far is kind of reward you for not really doing the main missions. It's kind of rewarding you for just like, hey, there's a cave right there. Like I remember there's this one cave where the enemy was just kind of floating there. I was like, what the heck is that? And I go towards him and then he like runs inside of the cave. I'm like, okay, let me see what's happening. And I go in there and there's a ton of loot in there. So just like little moments like that um, makes it feel more lived in. It makes it feel just more fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously. I will say the learning curve of this game isn't super high, but like there's a lot of stuff I just happened to realize way later in the game. It does provide a guide, um, but who's gonna really read the guide? I'm just being
Not
honest.
many of us read the guides. It's like,
Yeah,
there's something in the hub. All right, cancel,
yeah,
delete,
like get out
back,
of my way.
delete.
I'm trying to do stuff. Get out of my way. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff I realized way later. Just like little things like how to organize some of your equipment, how to just do little things. Um, so it's not too complicated. I think like you can do enough to get started, but things that will definitely help you in terms of healing and different ways to attack enemies, adjusting so like you use your magic spells and stuff like that. I don't know. For me it took me a couple hours to even realize I could do certain things. Um, so it may be the same for y'all. Shout out to Web Dave. Hello, he dropped on in. But really liking Avowed is dope. I want to read some comments from you guys because I think some of you guys are mentioning some things that you are also experiencing in Avowed. Saying I'm loving Avowed. Yes, me too. Um, this is from E Rank says the lack to townspeople movement is kind of off, but they are constantly chatting with each other, so you don't really notice the lack of movement in it after a while. This is coming from E Ranks. Yeah, I agree with that. They're they're not moving so much, and now I'm thinking about there's been portions where the town was just coming after a huge war or attack, and they are kind of just staying there. But I never really notice it because I'm usually ventured in the dialogue. I guess. But yeah, that was a good point. I mean, I honestly haven't even realized it. I've been like 30 hours in. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really care to be honest. But it's cool. Rashun says, Epinger says, I'm not a fan of the dialogue system so far. I feel like you're not going as deep as a convo as I'm used to. I'm liking it. Um, so I don't know. I think there's certain parts also like if you have more perception or if you have more intelligence, you're able to change the branch of the conversation where you kind of want, depending on if you are ranking up in those little dialogue trees, which is really satisfying. Especially me when I first started, I was like a low level, but I kept putting points into certain things just for conversation's sake, and I was able to like change the trajectory of some conversation. So that was actually pretty cool. I like stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I kind of disagree, but I feel ya. Fun speculation dropping on in saying, "Yo, hey man, how's it going?" Mechanic says, "I also did not read many of the tutorials. Anyone know if you can turn off the shadowing beyond ability if you turn it on too early or don't need it?" You have any idea on that?
The shadowing.
Yeah, what do you mean shadowing beyond? See,
I
maybe I'm
think
missing a whole new
I
thing.
think I know there's a spec thing for. I think it's for Kai.
Hmm.
I don't know.
I know,
There's
like,
got to be a way to respec it or something.
yeah, there is a despec ability for yourself, but I haven't really thought about it for the companions. I think there is one for the companions as well, if you wanted
Yeah.
to put it into different trees, if that's what you're talking about. Um, yeah, because I think I remember there's some coins that you can do for your companions as well. I just never tried it, but I'm pretty sure you can change that as well. Also, the fact that you're able to play in third person, I know that's like we found that out weeks before it came out or whatever, but it is awesome.
Yeah.
I constantly flip back and forth depending on the situation. Like I did the same thing in Skyrim where I travel in third person, but then like if I'm getting to certain fights or if I'm sneaking around with a bow, then I'll switch to first. But sometimes I'll battle in third. I just like the option to be able to flip between the two. Torino Johnson says, I love Avowed. Also, I got the shock of what happened to me after rescuing an important person. Let's just say without spoiling it, but it was a sudden violent action. My jaw just dropped. Yes, that's something I'm realizing. Your actions do have consequences. Um, Without me spoiling too much, let's just say I'm pissing off a lot of people. That's all I'll say. And it is having consequences. So eventually I will explain what I've been doing, but I am going against the norm, let's just say, of the story a little bit. So definitely experiencing different branches. Max says, I'm totally team third person. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So 100%. Like Fuzzy, you mentioned either behind the scenes or on here that on social media, some people were saying certain negative things about Avowed. My personal views, it's been really fun for me. I haven't really been on Twitter, so what have been, I guess, the major complaints for Avowed?
For me, I mean, well, my
Like, I
only
guess what other
complaint,
people are saying, is it just the length? I guess.
there's some complaint about the length. Some are complaining about the companions themselves. The ones that I saw for the brief moment I was on Twitter before I kind of muted some of the people
Mm,
was that, oh, your decisions don't matter. This isn't a real. I'm like, I obviously you haven't played because there's a couple of them early on that you can make that show that there's some consequence related to what your decisions are. Like you're, uh, yeah, I'm not going to give anything away, but it's like you have to play more than the first hour in the first area to realize that. I mean, because you're actually, I think, probably within the first half hour, you're making a decision that can affect how things move forward to some extent and how you're looked upon in the next town. But my only complaint in all these hours has been for third person the interaction sometimes, but that was more noticeable the first few hours I played. Now I kind of adjust my view how I approach. Like I could tell, oh, because it has kind of like a slightly yellow outline, I guess, for like some of the things that are dropped on the ground or something that might be, pick upable, if that's a word.
yeah.
As soon as you like get closer to it, or depending on like where that little dot is, because there's always like a little crosshair somewhere on the screen. As long as that dot is pointed to it or nearby it, it should do the prompt so you can pick it up, take it, whatever type of thing, or eat it directly there. But before it was like, wait a minute, why is, oh, wait, I moved the camera and it popped and then it disappeared. So you get used to it rather quickly. But that's been my only real complaint for it. For an Unreal 5 engine game, this is probably the smoothest, most polished one I've seen to date. I loved a lot of what I saw with Unreal 5 on Stalker 2. Yes, it had some flicker issues. Yes, it had some pop in or draw distance things, and the shaders would take a while, at least on the PC, to load up and stuff. But that game ran, I think, pretty good compared to some of the other games we saw earlier on in this generation on Unreal 5.
Or,
But to me, this is the most polished so far. Um, the level of detail, both on console and on PC, the range that you can, turn up all the bells and whistles on PC. The fact that I don't see any of the stuttering that you typically see in a Unreal Engine 5 game. Um, but like the complaints that I see, I assume some are valid criticisms as far as their preference on a RPG. But I think the one thing that a lot of gamers should probably stop doing, not that I'm going to tell them how to game or whatnot, but
or,
there are some that wanted this to be more of like a Skyrim centric type game, and it's not that. It's its own thing. And to go in with the expectation for this to be a Skyrim type game is where, if people are getting disappointed over that, I understand, but they kind of set themselves up for that. It's the same thing that we saw when people were like, "Oh, well, Starfield should be like No Man's Sky." No, no, it shouldn't. And
yeah,
it's not a one for one Skyrim in space either. I mean, it's got a lot of overlap as far as how systems work, but it's not going to be a direct translation. But I think as long as people go into this, whether they have familiarity with the Pillars of Eternity lore or not, and just play this as an RPG, know that it's got some great upgrades in uh, quality of life, or things that are typically overlooked that are convenient to the player. This has them to boot. Some of the things, as far as I know, some people would have preferred their character to be voiced. The only thing I say on that, I would, instead of voice, I would rather want to see my character's expressions for some of the things you can say to people where you like glare at them or you chuckle at them, like, yeah, I dare you to, pull your weapon and see what happens kind of thing,
right,
F around and find out kind of deals. I would like to see how your character's expression is towards those individuals. That to me would be the cooler aspect. But I just like picking some of those sometimes because you see real quick which ones were about that life and which
mm,
ones were like, boss, I think he's serious. I think we need to go. And the other guy is like, I'm gonna take care of you later. I've had enough of this guy. And it's like that's the first guy I'm chopping the head off, and you can see the other guy ran away. And you could either be the mass murderer and try to get them, although sometimes it seems like they have a life bar, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know if they truly run away and I guess they drop their weapon or something. You can't kill them at that point. But
mm.
everybody else, it's like they want to take a shot at you. Yeah, you see that health bar, you got business to handle. But
Some of
I
the
love the combat in this game.
yeah,
I've seen some people complain about the combat, like I don't know. Are they expecting a different type of hack and slash type of combat? The magic to me feels great, or I love the status effect I see on the enemies and how it either stuns or staggers or pretty much melt. Not well, it doesn't melt them, but it burns some kind of thing when you do the fireball stuff or freeze them and then you can shatter them kind of thing. All of that's just fun to me, but the combat is awesome. But I know some people, this isn't, not every game is for everyone, but I, I'm a strong believer and I will recommend this until I'm blue in the face, I guess. If you got Game Pass, this is definitely worth a try. Even if you have to stream it to try it out to see if you like it, I think it's worth the hard drive space it takes up. It's worth the download. For those looking to purchase it, if you're still on the fence, get that Game Pass subscription and still give it a try. I think this is worth trying. Um, and I would say worth buying, but I'm not going to say, yeah, go ahead and spend your 60 or 70 or whatever out of your own pocket. That's for you to decide. But as an RPG fan, not the most uh, I guess how should I put it? The most, not the most enthusiastic RPG. No, I'm into RPGs, but not as much the high fantasy stuff. But for somebody that's not into high fantasy and went into Hogwarts just more so on the FOMO because I originally wasn't going to buy it and was
yeah.
pleasantly surprised with that. Yeah, I think this is another one that's worth the buy, but that's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah. I haven't bought a ton of games that have come to Game Pass, to be honest with you. Well, but if I don't buy a game, sometimes I will invest with the microtransactions. Like, I'm like, ooh, use that money in other places. I bought this game before it came out. I was one of the. I just couldn't wait. I was like, okay, I gotta play this game. Gotta play. I've been waiting for Avowed for a while, and it surprised me in several ways. It like surprised me with the combat, and I feel like initially this was going to be 30 frames, right? I think they had some announcement where they're like, oh, it's gonna be 30 frames, and then they had time to polish
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah, because that was a complaint before the delay announcement that, oh, it's going to be 30 frames, and people were like, they were ready to throw their console out the window kind of thing. And I
yeah,
get it. Some people want that option, and the option should always be that. It should always be an
I agree.
option.
Yeah.
Um, but I once I heard the delay, I was probably one of the few on record who was like, I guarantee you this thing will be 60 by the time they release it. Not saying that that was what they were going to focus on in the polishing phase, but I guarantee you that was something that was on the to-do list where if they released it at their normal or their original release date, I think that was in November-ish or something.
Yeah.
Um, we would have probably got the patch for the 60,
Around
sometime
this
early
time.
this
Yeah.
year. So it's like if they're delaying it till early next year, they'll probably have that already wrapped in it when it launches, kind of thing. And sure enough, yeah, they definitely the added time was worth the polish. Um, like I said, this is probably the most flawless Unreal Engine 5 game I've seen short of Fortnite, which I don't really play Fortnite. So aside from that, I can't really attest to any other ones like was it Avum, Agents or Avum or something like that.
Oh yeah.
It had its blurriness. Like I
Hmm.
said, Stalker 2 had its issues. I mean, the only other one was Hellblade 2, that was like pretty much flawless as far
Yeah.
as its
Flows
Unreal Engine
30.
5
Yeah.
release, but only 30 frames on console. Not that I care because I played it on PC, but um, that was another one. But it was I'll say it. It was a smaller scope game in comparison. I mean, bigger and better visuals, obviously, but smaller in scope as far as systems and whatnot. But
Yeah.
yeah, awesome, both awesome games for Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah. I'm glad they took the time. If originally, I know E Rank says originally they misspoke and said they were targeting 30 frames. The whole thing is, and this is something I've been a component of. Most games are capable of hitting 60. It's just putting the development time and resources into doing so. Especially with what we have with modern consoles. Thanks for subscribing, AGH. What we have with like modern day consoles is like we have pretty powerful systems with the Series X and PS5, but with what a lot of developers are kind of doing is like, oh, we have all the extra power. Let me not use that to actually to use the resources to actually develop the game properly. It's just like, oh, we have extra specs. Cool. Let's just use different tools to kind of optimize the game for me. Um, and that just leads to development problems. Something with Avowed. This is a good testament to UE5 because for a while I don't know, I was kind of skeptical with like performance in UE5, just because the developers I feel like weren't properly utilizing its optimization. But with Avowed, it's kind of proving to me like, hey, it could be done. It's a very smooth game. I've played it in quality mode, and I had to question sometimes like, is this 60? Like I think it's 60, but sometimes it would have its drops during some moments. But the quality mode in terms of what I'm seeing is it's great. So I'm really enjoying it. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and move on. But before I move on, let me read some of you guys' chats. You guys had some stuff to say. Torino says, I love Avowed. Also, I got the shock of what happened to me. Yes, read that one. Torino also said, I'm taking people off too. Yeah. It's really fun. really fun to tick people off. Like I'm a selfish player. Like if I feel like ooh, I don't like the way you said that line, I'm killing that. I'm killing that character. That's just the way I play. Like I don't you disrespecting me. I'm the envoy. You're not gonna be talking to me like that. That's kind of how I play. Mechanic. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hello, hello. Max says he played on the Series X, Steam Deck, and Rock Ally. Not one crash. That's cool. I really want to get the Steam Deck and start playing some games on there.
Mhm.
Negative Zero says, why do people always do that? It's an unfair expectation. You want Skyrim, go play Skyrim. I agree. This is something the media has a tendency to do is they'll punish a game for not being another game, like Starfield. Like, why isn't it like No Man's Sky? Like, why doesn't it have this and this? And it's its own game, it's its own vision, so it should be judged according to that. Um, Avowed is a smaller game than Skyrim, but what it makes up for being a smaller game, in my opinion, is it's a lot more polished in a lot of ways, and it has like these smaller hub towns with a lot more dialogue options. A lot, like because it's smaller, it kind of uses that to its advantage. So that's what I'm noticing so far in my 30 hours of playing. All right, yeah. Hello, everybody. Everybody, you guys are having a great conversation. The Groat also, seen Mav mention,
Mhm.
turning people into the Steel Groat. Um,
Mhm.
I I don't like the Groat, so that's my playthrough. I'm just saying, like, I don't like the Steel Groat. I don't like a lot of these factions, so I'm basically like, screw you all. I'm going my own way, and it's satisfying in some ways, but I'm also getting punished, gameplay wise. So. But that's on me. That's on me. That's the way I am playing. So let's get into our second topics. But so this one is very interesting. This is something that's been floating around. Is let's see, some quotes from Satya, the Microsoft CEO. He's kind of been talking about Muse AI generative models and using that for Xbox's newer games. Some highlights that I have here from tech4gamers.com mention Microsoft CEO said that a huge catalog of Xbox games would soon utilize Muse AI. Also mentioned while it previously thought that Muse would only be used to preserve older games, that wasn't the case. Um, then he says Nadel's response to Muse was a wow moment, similar to the first time the world saw ChatGPT complete sentences. So those are just some of the highlights. Fuzzy also sent me the whole interview. I was like, okay, let me watch this because I'm just curious. So that is what you see on the screen is the interview with, I believe his name is pronounced Dwarkesh Patel. Um, Something that was mentioned in the interview is AI could be used to generate games that are both kind of consistent and having the ability to generate, representing the diversity of what the game represents, and then also having the ability of like users being able to apply mods to said game. Um, so he also noted that a certain studio, he didn't mention what studio. I was like, dang, but he noted that a certain studio has been working on Muse AI, a certain game, Xbox Studio. He mentioned that they were going to start training these models to generate stuff and then start play testing them. He mentioned that Phil Spencer came up to him. He showed where the model, it took the input description, which all that means is like it took a description like, hey, make a game about Master Chief and Doomslayer going on a mountain or something like that. That'll be the input description, and then it generated the output being, which is the game. So he mentioned that in an interview where Phil Spencer came up to Satya. He showed him like input. It generated a game, and they played it on an Xbox controller. They just like right there. Um, I this wasn't in this interview, but I kept reading online and mentioned that like the AI model. They had one being trained on Ninja Theory's Bleeding Edge game,
Mhm.
and then they had several years of like gameplay data being fed to Muse AI. He mentioned a lot, so he also mentioned that it's interesting not just in the gaming context, but a general action model, world model. Um, so yeah, so for me personally, I've always been in the boat of really liking innovation, liking the next step. Microsoft has had a history of just doing things people aren't yet ready for, then it later being accepted. We talked about on the show. And I believe this is just another tool now. And as someone who works in the industry and I use AI, I think the AI tool is only as good as the data it's trained on. So if it's able to look into engine code and kind of learn how characters can move, attack, how platform games work as opposed to first person shooters, I mean, you're talking about revolutionary tech where you take games that are already made and then you're training AI to be able to learn from games that are already out there and kind of develop it through an input. I mean, that would be amazing if it works properly and if it understands game engine blueprint code, like if it knows how that stuff works and functions. I mean, that would be big. I don't know if anyone has seen some of the mods that are like put into Skyrim recently, but they have some mods where people are making it so you can talk to NPCs and then they can
Yeah.
respond back to you naturally. But it doesn't just end there because what's interesting about those mods is now they're being able you have the ability to also give them goals. So I seen someone go up to a bear and mention like that a guard killed your kind. Help me avenge. He killed a bear, so help me avenge your bear kind. And he had this moment where the bear was looking for the guards that killed his kind. Like so, AI can be used to further gameplay mechanics where you're no longer restricted by written story paths. But yeah, I mean, a lot of cool stuff that can happen with that. Like AI can be used to fine tune development. Something I always think about is Crackdown 3, right? It had the right idea of using the
Mhm.
cloud as a means for like destructive environments, but I feel like it just wasn't the right time to do that. Where like we're starting to get to a place where now it's a better time to kind of utilize some of these AI cloud features to alleviate system performance issues. And I'm getting to my developer nerdiness here. But some of the stuff he's mentioned, I it'd be cool if it's here now. Some of the examples they showed in the like what it's able to do now, it's still it's some things I'm like, that tree is looking is not looking good. Um, but the fact that we're at a stage where you can just type in, make me a game about like a platformer, and then add this in there. The main character is a guy with glasses, and it just does it. That's crazy, man. Um,
Yeah.
that we're almost in that future. So to me, it's cool. I know some people wasn't digging it. They're like, a lot of people are opposed to AI in general, but to me, I like innovation in tech. Like I'm always going to try uh to be ahead, and especially with my industry where um we're always looking for the next thing, so we're ahead of the mark. So I might have just a different perspective than most people, but I think it's cool. I think tech technically like there's a lot of things there that can innovate gaming as a whole. And I've thought about it in terms of this, how modders are using Skyrim. Like instead of you having these pre-baked responses, you could what if you could actually just talk to the NPC and be like, all right, enough of this. Where's the town I need to go to? Let's just skip. Let's skip this. Is pressing A where you're not really paying attention. Like, where's the town I need to go to? You could just actually just talk to an NPC. That's pretty crazy. That we're getting to that stage. So Fuzz. Just from what I said,
Mhm.
things that he's mentioned maybe that I forgot about because it was like a 2 hour long interview. He's
Yeah.
mentioned a lot, so I'm sure I forgot some things. But like, what were some things that maybe stood out to you? What are you kind of excited for, or do you not like this at all? Or maybe you're like, oh, screw this, I don't want this in my games. What are your thoughts?
I like the concept. I like the idea of technology moving forward. Me being retired, I might have a little bit of a different prospect. I'm not as concerned with the prospect of AI in this industry, but I can understand people's concerns because companies will try and find a way to cut costs, and sometimes that means cutting positions. And if the technology can do that, they might lean towards that. But that wasn't as much of the focus. That wasn't the focus with this particular interview. The it was mainly about something that and I like their standpoint on this, where it's a tool for their creative devs currently. Um, so that way, instead of having them do multiple builds or try a to I always call it rapid prototype because that was more of the industry I was in for like the automotive stuff. It's like,
Right.
oh, make this build of this game for now, and then they realize after 16 to 40 work hours for that team were wasted adding, X, Y, and Z to this. Like, oh, we don't really need pink elephants in this fantasy RPG. That was a bad idea, and you just
Mhm.
wasted all that time. But if you can have the AI kind of spec that out and make that in 20 minutes, 30 minutes or less, and it's like you get to see firsthand without spending a lot of the extra time, are pink elephants really a good fit for this RPG? And then you could say, okay, nah, well, it's good that we scrap that. Let's remove that from the storyboard. Let's remove that from the plan. Go back to like the purple camels or something,
Right.
and you could save yourself time. And the thing that we always hear these devs, well, not the devs, but mainly the publishers complain about is these inflated costs for production for these games. Like games are now, well, AAA games at least, are in the 200, 300, 400 million dollar range just to be made before you even really get into the advertising aspect of it. So if they could save, maybe hours or weeks, whether it's in the building or test phase to kind of test things out, or even in the polishing phase, do the bug check, having the AI work on the back end and help out with the bug fixes, because unless you have thousands of QC people, you're probably not going to come across the same amount of issues as the AI might be able to recognize in lesser time, kind of thing. And it's not to put QC people out. It's just a matter of if your QC is 2 months out from release and you only have 12 people that can focus on it versus an AI that can assist with those 12 people, and they have multiple playthroughs that they're monitoring along with the AI going through it, you're already ahead of the curve. That 2 months actually winds up being the equivalent of 6 months of work that can be squeezed into 2 months without actually doing the the, what do they call that? I had a mind fart on that one as far as like the crunch time,
Right.
basically. So you can cut back on things like crunch. But I think the big thing now is that tools like this will help smaller developers punch higher than their weight class would be normally for their production value. Like if it's a small team of 1 to 2 devs or something like that, and they have access to tools like this will definitely help them save time and help them, along the way. And then for the bigger studios, I would love to see some of the creative aspect where somebody like we've heard rumors of like at 343 before the name change and stuff like that. They had proposed an idea similar to like in Helldivers 2 for their own, lore and stuff as far as like the jump pods and things like that.
Right.
Building that through AI and showing the, the lead team or the higher ups, hey, this is what we're thinking about. We could kind of spin this off as a separate mode or a separate game. And what do you think? Or have it where they could have actual like beta testers or the people that do the QC as well as some of the preview people test it out, see if this mode is of interest to them, and they can move forward from there. Instead of, you know, building something out all those months into it, then after you've built it and spent all that man hours and money, the team that tested out is like, yeah, this wasn't it. Kind of like what Bungie went through with Marathon. They had a lot of people that play Escape from Tarkov, try and test out the early build of Marathon. And hey, will you guys play this? Anybody willing to play this over Tarkov? Raise your hand, and nobody raises their hand. This could save you some of that embarrassment, or save some of the time it takes to get to that point, because that's almost like at that point a year wasted to go back to the drawing board, as opposed to something that you could have probably spun up in a matter of a month in comparison. So these advantages, I hope they become widespread in the sense of aiding the teams that are in need of this help. But I do hope Microsoft, being the big conglomerate that it is, doesn't use it. I won't say for evil, but that they don't abuse this and use this in place of contractors or building up the teams and stuff. Like if this could be a way of avoiding, bringing like thousands of people just to let them go a couple of months later, kind of thing, after a project is spun up, so be it. I think it's better to stop having those highs and lows as far as like fluctuations in the size of the teams. But then again, this would also, I think, help the teams make more solid decisions as far as what those builds will look like and the time it may take to make them and stuff. So I look forward to see what studio, if they ever tell us what
Yeah.
studio's working on it, and see what type of game is made from that, or things that can help that game along the production cycle. Because if it's, let's say it's Ninja Theory and that Project Mara is a multiplayer game, just for example's sake, and it's like, oh, everybody is in their own dream world, and we found a way that you can enter other people's dreams or something like that, and then they have the whole interface stuff figured out, and it's like, hey, this game can come to market in 2 years instead of 6 years, like it may have been, type of thing before. So we'll see.
Yeah. Um, in terms of how companies are gonna take this tool and in the future of, because Mr. Waffles, he said,
Yeah.
how do you feel about AI as a fellow creator, 3-bit? I can see a lot of artist jobs being a redundancy in the future. And then he follows that up with it's a very slippery slope for me. It should only be used as a tool, not to create. That takes away the human element of creating. I've seen some terrible AI upscaling with some older movies. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so my view on it, again, is probably different from most people. Like I'm always trying to, um 'cause the industry I'm in always changes. And technology is something that constantly adapts and changes as well. So I'm always trying to learn with AI and learn about new technology so that I'm not left behind. Like there was a period in time, for example, where typewriters used to be a job, right? That used to be a position in the industry where you're a typewriter. Obviously, when we move to keyboards, different technology, that job is no longer required. In terms of like having that creator's touch, that's something I will always believe in. If you want a genuine good product, you're going to need a good person there. um, I believe the best way to utilize AI is to always just use it as a tool to speed up production, or to add it to I believe, was it Decado who said it? Someone just mentioned. Oh, Ray Old said it. Said AI dialogue in RPGs can be endless, especially if they get to remember your choices. Like having that ability in Skyrim completely basically changes the game, where you're able to now just conversate as if you were having a conversation in real life, which can't be done with a human right now, at least. Like you maybe as a human you can cater some of the answers to make sure that it's still realistic. Like if you are in a medieval setting and you say to an AI, like, "Hey, you want to go to Starbucks?" Obviously, the guard should respond with like, "What the heck is a Starbucks?" Right? So there still needs to be a human element to kind of, I feel like, lead AI in a certain way, and I go back and forth with this in my head. Like I think AI is good as a tool. Um, in terms of it replacing jobs, like I feel like it's going to, and there's not much I can do about it. I may have something to say about it, like negatively, especially being in the industry, but it's going to. It's just a matter of how you adapt to that, and how we can still learn about it, get ahead of it. I'm just speaking from a developer standpoint. Like as technology progress, there's naturally going to be the industry itself is greedy, right? So I know that. So it's just a matter of trying to get ahead of that. Like I know that they are wanting to build AI, make it as proficient as possible, so that way they can down on budgets. Like I'm sure they don't want to spend millions of dollars on these games, right? They like I'm sure Sony, if they have the option of making Spider-Man 3 and it's just built by AI and has a similar quality to Spider-Man 2, they would jump in, right? Eliminate those jobs, save money. I'm just being honest, like that's probably the stance that these companies are going to take. So how I kind of look at it is, how can I learn about it to use that to my advantage? Because if you're just in the boat where he's like you're like, oh, this sucks, it's going to take away jobs, then you're just kind of in a mentality where it's just like it sucks, and then you can't do anything about it. Um, but if you're just kind of going with the flow, kind of figuring out how these technologies work and how you can be in a position to grow with it, then cool. So that's how I've always viewed it. That's why I kind of view it maybe a little bit differently than some people who maybe are against it. Um, and I'm also, I kind of always wanted to see the future. I wanted to see the flying cars. We are in 2025 and we still don't have our dang flying cars that we were promised in some of these movies. So, um, in terms of tech, I've always been like, I want us to reach the future and get better. Um, it is going to, unfortunately, like it. I'm sure some jobs are going to be taken. I already know some jobs have been taken with like Netflix, for example. There's a lot of jobs at Netflix that have been replaced by AI. So it's already happening. But from the development standpoint, I try to stay ahead. From the gamer standpoint, I'm interested in seeing how it's going to adapt different genres of games, kind of like RPGs like Skyrim and stuff like that, where you can have endless conversations with NPCs. Like I would play that for hours, days, years, you know. So I think it's cool. It's definitely cool. I just from the the interview, I'm gonna see if I can find the moment. Oh yeah, shoot, I had it for a second. Here's the moment when he's showing the examples. Wait, let me keep passing it by accident. Okay, so this is the moment when he was talking about the generated gameplay examples. Um, I believe they trained this from Ninja Theory's game. Um, it's not fully there yet. Like some of the graphics look pretty cool. But sometimes you'll get like trees disappear and things like that. You guys could go check out the interview. It's like a 2 hour interview, but they did have a moment where they were talking about the examples. I feel like graphics wise, it's not there yet, but mechanics wise, it's very impressive that you could type in an input and you could just have a character start running around and attacking and stuff like that. That's crazy. That we're now at a stage, possibly where we could just type in the game that we want and it could just create it. Um, so we'll see. We'll definitely see. It's a lot of different conversations in there in terms of like AI and what that means for the industry. I feel like naturally progression is going to kick people out regardless. Um, Unfortunately. So, and hey, that's probably me too. I'm just saying, like the stuff that I do, I'm sure will eventually be lessened by technology. And that's just how it's going to be. So,
But
gamer by choice. Yeah, go
without
ahead.
getting too preachy or political, like I think there's a way to embrace it, and there's also a way, whether it's through unions or labor laws or whatnot, to have some sort of like labor protections where, hey, companies that are going to operate in this country have to have, 80% of the job listings or job positions or tasks have to be held by humans, or AI can only be used as an additional tool, much like some of the robotics and stuff that you see on assembly lines, even though yes, a lot of that replaced the assembly line workers, but there are still human assembly line workers for some of the um, I wouldn't say smaller tasks, but not for some of the ones that are less technical as far as for like the welding and things. So
Mm.
there's going to be a take and get or give and take type of thing probably over the next decade or so. But like the advice you gave, it's kind of the same advice I had from like the marketing standpoint of business. It's like embrace it, learn it as best you can, become the expert that you never thought you could be for it, and differentiate yourself from others. Like the more you're familiar with this technology, the more valuable you'll become, because when a lot of these companies use this technology, a lot of times the company that they purchase it from gives them like a brief tutorial, but everybody wants custom stuff. Like
Right.
any operating system, any um, software that a company gets, they want their own custom thing, or they want the ability to customize. And if you could be that, go between to help them in that, at least you will retain your value to the company. So that way you're not fully replaced. But that's been my motto with technology, from everything from CAD to rapid prototype stuff. Like before, prototypes was like, oh, build it out of clay or build it out of this, and a year later, maybe it goes to production when you get the tooling. Now they got these rapid prototype machines where you can do the 3D scan in 15 minutes and have a plastic, prototype out of the prototype machine or out of the 3D printer in a matter of a half hour or less.
Yeah.
And hey, you got your new air filter ready to go, send the tooling to China, and blah blah blah. But yeah, it the industry will always move forward. You got to move forward faster. That's the best advice I think we can give.
Yep. If you're in my industry, gaming industry, commercial industry, look at this stuff as a way to push ahead of what is about to be trending. So you just, and if you're a gamer, I mean, this stuff could be awesome for you. Be able to, um, talk with NPCs for hours, just about whatever. Um, in terms of the quality of games, we'll see what that means. It's yeah, it's a lot of different conversations with this AI stuff. Honestly, a lot of different branches of conversation because you you have like someone mentioned with AI filters with movies being like worse, like it makes the movie worse essentially, just letting the AI do everything. So you always need some sort of human to cater the experience, but AI can speed certain things up. So it kind of depends on how they implement it and everything. Gamer by Choice says, I do agree, Fuzzy, that we probably need safeguards for technology because people will do what people do and many will try and take advantage of others. If anything is to go by the last few years of the gaming industry, is if you make an amazing game, if you make a terrible game, both scenarios lead you to getting fired either way, right? Let's just be honest. Like
Yeah, we didn't
there's
meet our quotas for the quarter.
yeah, got to meet the quotas. It doesn't matter how good, bad. The gaming industry is broken in a lot of ways. It's kind of why I've been leaving it. It's unfortunate. Like the games I love, the industry I don't love so much. So that is something that definitely needs to maybe shift over time. But it's it's like when with AI coming to the picture, I can't imagine it getting better. So I only get unless people start to unionize, start to make different rules and laws there. Some stuff that Fuzzy's been mentioning. That's the only way I can maybe see certain stuff getting better. But the gaming industry as a whole is kind of already being abused in terms of like how they're treating developers right now. How I was honestly treated in a lot of ways wasn't the best. So um, I think something needs to happen there, especially with AI coming on the scene. But we'll see. It's the gaming industry already isn't the best, and AI isn't even fully in the picture yet. So I can't imagine it's gonna get super better. Torino says the people who are saying that it will put people out of a job are the same ones who don't buy games. The studios shut down, resulting in lost jobs, etc., etc. I mean, look, I again, like I see things differently. Like I think I can see why people say that stuff because it is true. Like there are a lot of jobs that are lost by technology and AI. We've seen this in multiple industries, not just gaming. But we see in the movie industry, there was a whole movie studio that was about to be built not too far away from me, Tyler Perry. He had a whole movie studio he was about to build down here, and he realized that I have AI. I could just AI the backgrounds, and he decided not to build it. That's hundreds of jobs just lost by that decision, right? So it is true. It's just a matter of you using that knowledge of like AI and technology. If you're in my industry and you care, um, using that to your advantage and seeing how you can intertwine with that. If you're a gamer, I don't know. It's cool if you're a gamer, I guess. You're like, cool, new stuff. But if you're in my industry, yeah, it can be a little complicated. Gamer Choice also says companies want to see growth. Even my company, we're always talking about growth in our meetings. It is scary when we do not meet numbers. Yeah, it's the business peeps, and unfortunately, they will cancel even if people do good. So is this especially the gaming industry? Like that's something I've been very vocal about not liking in the gaming industry of how they treat developers and stuff like that. Definitely needs to change. Something I gave Lana Pierce props for. She spoke about it at an award show, which could be scary. Because those are the same people who hire this potential person, right? So yeah, that is something that definitely needs to change in the gaming industry, and I hope over time that enough people speak out about it where it can change. All right, let's get into unless you had any more on that, Buzz. I know I went to a whole spiel, but
No, no,
unless
no,
you had any more in the okay.
no. Because it's almost like that wait and see. We're right at that I guess you could say that dam break moment, I guess you could
Hmm.
say,
Yeah.
when it comes to AI. It's just a matter of time. Like you're finding out companies spent billions of dollars on some of their language model stuff for like chat and whatnot. And then that was a DeepSeek or something, kind of did
Oh
it
yeah.
on a super thin budget. Although some of it is overlapping existing model stuff that's used, so they're in an arms race for AI right now, and it's just a matter before every AI is in everything. Although I don't know if I need AI to have my refrigerator tell me I need to go buy more eggs or not. But I can definitely see that being part of the things like, why did we even think this was a good idea? As opposed to some of the cool things that it could result in, like the NPCs having unlimited dialogue that's relevant to the game and relevant to your playthrough and stuff like that. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah, we'll see. Like, I will be one of those people. Like, you see those movies where humans treat robots bad, and
Mhm.
then robots rise up. I would probably be the reason why the robots rise up against us, because I would be like, massage my feet, do my bills, make sure the AC is good. Like, it would be bad. I would be the reason why robots rise up. And like, massage my feet right now. Um, yeah, yeah. Sorry, robots. Um, a gamer by choice. Lastly says the thing I would be concerned with would be an influx of games being produced, and there are only so many gamers and so much time to play, so a bunch of games can cause games to sell less. I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, that's not something I thought about. I guess with AI, if AI makes it so it's easier to develop games, that would mean it'll be faster theoretically to develop
Yeah.
the games, which means there'll be more games out there. Yeah, that's true. You'll have to figure that out. I guess that's a great point. Um, I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see what
Mhm.
happens. The third topic is basically talking about Yoshida. He's been saying some things in the gaming media lately. So we have a couple statements. Let's go through some of them. So this comes from an article from Video Games Chronicle. I'll read some of it, and then Fuzz, you can lead off on the rest. But he basically is saying
Okay.
it's a former PlayStation executive, Shuhei Yoshida, claims he was made to lead PlayStation's new indie initiative because he would have to leave the company if he hadn't. So there's more in that, but Fuzz, if you want to lead, what basically happens in this first quote, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, he's been a popular executive with Sony for years. If people don't remember, he was one of the ones in the "This is how you share a game" video. He's always been the guy. Like, if anybody would complain about like the Xbox executives congratulating Sony executives or Sony for stuff, he would be the one of the few that would, acknowledge Xbox with, game launches, because he was a gamer. Now, he didn't go overboard. You wouldn't see him take pictures on his Xbox or Xbox controller, but
Yep.
he would at least make mention, hey, congrats on this or something. He was one of the few you would see do that. But this popular executive quit Sony last month after 31 years at the company, where he helped launch the original PlayStation and served as president of SIE Worldwide Studios between 2008 to 2019. In 2019, it was announced that Yoshida had stepped down to work on a new initiative focusing on building relationships with indie developers, with Herman Hulst replacing him as president. Basically, Herman Hulst went from what is that studio? Um, oh my God, I just forgot the ones that did Horizon.
Gorilla.
Yeah, so he was from Gorilla. He got promoted to, first party president, I guess you could say.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, and then Yoshida, that was kind of his job beforehand, and he was the one kind of pushed into indies. And I know there were a lot of people that said, "Oh, that's not a demotion. He's still a president of gaming and stuff." But indies versus first party,
Mm-hmm.
who do you think is getting the bigger paycheck at the end of the day,
Right.
or has the better parking spot, let's say, kind of thing? So, Yoshida explained that while he enjoyed his time working with the indie developers, and will continue to do so now that he's actually left Sony. It was a role that was essentially forced on him, but one he took regardless because of his love for indie games. Moving from first party to indies, well, I had no choice, Yoshida explained to VentureBeat.
Mm.
When Jim asked me to do the indie job, the choice was to do that or leave the company. But I felt very strongly about the state of PlayStation and indies and really wanted to do this. I believed I could do something unique for that purpose. And there are times where people could either it doesn't sound like he was going to be given a severance. It's like, hey, either pack your desk or pack your desk and go to the indie uh, desk or area in the basement near the boiler kind of thing. And it seemed like because of his love for gaming and love for indie games in general, he was like, I'd rather do that than go elsewhere, which probably wouldn't have been a severance, probably wouldn't have been any type of retirement. And considering how long ago that was, at that point, I guess he was with the company for 25 or 26 years. So yeah, it was definitely a setback for him. And I know a lot of people wondered about that. There was speculation on was he given that or fired type of thing. And it's funny how a lot of people thought that that was what was happening, but we never really heard a story. Same thing like with Layden. We kind of feel that he may have been given a similar situation where it's like, get out of the building kind of thing,
Hmm.
pack your desk kind of deal. And people are like, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. Like when you're at that level within a company for that many years, and there seems to be a regime change where, Jim's now the new boss. Jim has his own team, people that he wants to work with or that he wants within his circle of how to get things done. And if Yoshida is from the old guard where Leighton was just thrown out of the building, well, if you're Jim, you're thinking his loyalty is probably more to Leighton than would be to you because you
Sure.
probably exchanged words in the hallways at some point. And you, Jim wasn't a gamer. Jim was a numbers guy. We've seen that time and time again where he's holding the controller upside down or his PS5 is upside down.
Hmm.
Yoshida probably laughed at him or made jokes about him, and now he's the boss. Yeah, and that's why Jim was like, "Do indies because nobody else wants it, or get the f out." kind of thing.
Hmm.
So, all of that being said, I know a lot of people like to throw the mismanagement terminology over at Xbox or 343 and the initiative and mismanagement this, mismanagement that, but I kind of feel this exposes some of the mismanagement, and I'll say it's mismanagement in the sense that Yoshida did a good job with the indie portion as far as what was brought to PlayStation, but I think he did a better job when he was at first party than what Herman Hulst did. Now, people can agree to disagree, especially if you're a Horizon fan, whether it's Forbidden West or Zero Dawn or whatnot. But I think there was a better slate of games coming to first party or deals that were done with quote unquote second party because to some extent, I guess Stellar Blade, if you're a fan of that game, then you can thank Yoshida on that one. And there's been a lot of other ones that pretty much had his DNA on it as far as it come into PlayStation. So
Yeah.
it sucks to see stuff like this happen. Um, I know at some point we'll probably hear the full story about Mikey Barra. I already have what I believe to be some of the inside baseball info on it, but this one to me just sucks, and the fact that PlayStation fans haven't really focused on some of this upheaval prior or asked the questions like, hey, why is he going to indie as opposed to first party? Oh, Herman Hulst, the guy that's on a game that, yeah, we say we like, but we all fall asleep playing it. No, I'm just kidding. I actually enjoyed Horizon
Hmm.
Forbidden West a little bit more than Zero Dawn, but it doesn't have the reputation of like God of War, obviously, or even, in my opinion, it doesn't stand a flame to Ghost of Tsushima, which is my favorite IP from them right now. But what are your thoughts on him kind of like giving that ultimatum? Take the lesser job by the boiler or get the F out. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it was interesting because it was like when I seen this, I was thinking of all of the sort of a lot of Japanese old guard of Sony being kind of kicked to the side.
Mhm.
Um, and it was like I kind of speculated that this is what happened. This is stuff we talked about in other shows that like, yeah, it's not what it seems. It's like he's basically getting demoted, or basically he's basically not in the company at this point. And just to have it confirmed by him, it was like, oh, okay. It was just like just kind of a confirmation of things I was already thinking of what happened there. Um, but yeah, in terms of like mismanagement, you're not going to hear that from most of the media. In terms of Sony, you'll never really hear it with Sony in mind, despite them having 13 plus whatever game cancellations and how much money they poured in, like 500 million to Concord, and then canceling the game having like 10 players, or how like you'll never hear mismanagement with Sony. But I do feel like with where Yoshida wanted to take the company, um, and where Ryan wanted to take the company, we've seen their difference in vision for Sony. Like Ryan was very much the money guy, and to a point where you know with the game cancellations with the live service games, I actually kind of agreed with what Ryan was doing there. But it very much was a difference in what Sony would usually do, right? So it's just a difference in vision. Um, I definitely vibed with what Yoshida had going on at the time. I was like, okay. um, but yeah, it's definitely interesting just hearing it from his mouth. It's just like, is this confirmation of stuff we basically know, but certain people didn't want to mention of like what happens in some of these scenarios. But I think with what Ryan eventually did to Sony has put them on this trajectory that is really forcing them to innovate in a stricter sense than they would have if they made some different decisions. Um, However, Ryan, I mean, he definitely got Sony some money. Um, like PS5 has sold really well and stuff like that. I just think some things I disagree with, but like what I did agree with was essentially the live service games. I know a lot of people don't like that. They're like get the heck out of here with the live service games with Sony. But what I agreed with live service games with Sony is it was filling a hole that Sony tends to rely on, which is the single player experiences with story based. It has this formula, and what that did for me was Sony was growing outside of their traditional formula. Um, and they don't have a lot of live servicey games that have reoccurring revenue. So when you have games that are amazing, like a Spider-Man or like a Horizon or something like that, um, you don't get reoccurring revenue because it doesn't fit that sort of game. So I was actually kind of agreeing with Ryan, like, okay, well, you can have those games. You can have the games that people seem to know and love from Sony, but you can also start to grow of what people usually expect out of Sony, which is just single player games. Like start to change people's minds over time, and get them to be like, okay, here is something like Last of Us. Start having the expectation with fans that you can have single player games and online games, and this is a part of our experience. This is our quality, etc., etc. We are seeing how that's turning out. No, not very good. Um, but I still think he was correct in that vision. But it's not working out. It's not working out at all. So I mean, with this news, Fuzz, like I just it just kind of confirmed what I was initially thinking. That he was basically being pushed out in a nice way, and I think this is the second time they've sort of done this.
Yeah.
Like where they're like kindly pushing someone out of a position, but doing it in a way where you have fans like, no, that's not what's happening. They do it. They're so smart about it, but you're like, no, he's just moving to the indie sector. Like he would be way better over there. Like kind of just pushing
Mm.
someone in the closet. So
This is my
it
stapler.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely interesting. He also had another quote, and I
Yeah.
want to hear your thoughts on it. But he basically from Push Square, where he talked about like old PS5 games are almost like printing money by porting it to the PC. Do you have that article
Yeah.
up? So yeah, let's go through that too.
All right. So X once again, this is about Yoshida. Ex Sony exec says PC ports of old PS5 games are almost like printing money. And so Sony has, many older games going to PC, and some PlayStation fans have been wondering why. Well, initial ports like Horizon Zero Dawn and God of War sold, relatively well. The novelty has been declining with recent releases of like Spider-Man 2, performing particularly poorly. And to be fair, that one did launch with major issues. It almost felt like, remember how there was a lot of bugs at the launch of Spider-Man 2? It's almost
Hmm.
like they put that copy on PC without the patches that they put on console.
Yeah, he
Um,
was buggy.
yeah. But speaking in an interview with Sacred Symbols, Shuhei Yoshida explained that during his tenure as PS Studio boss, he pushed to bring more first party titles to PC, but this wasn't Sony's business model at the time. He noted that as the company's perspective has matured, it started to release or realize that the potential of releasing on storefronts such as Steam, basically were the next phase for them to move to. He explained, releasing on PC does many things. It reaches a new audience who does not own consoles, especially in regions where consoles are not as popular. The idea that those people may become fans of a particular franchise, and when a new game in that series comes out, they may be convinced to purchase a PlayStation. So essentially, it's kind of, although I disagree with it a little bit, but it's kind of the adage that give them a taste and maybe they'll buy the PlayStation. But I think they're even realizing further that most of these people may not want to buy a PlayStation 5. Like if you have a fairly decent rig, let's say, because you can build a decent one for under 2 grand. Some people can go as high as 5 grand, and sky's the limit on your budget. But like, let's say you have one of those, $2,000 to $3,000 rigs, fairly decent one. You're accustomed now to playing keyboard and mouse, or maybe a wired controller to your PC. Do you really want to spend another 500 or 600 on a console for a handful of games? Or would you rather just get the games that came from that console and play them on your already existing hardware that has a lot more bells and whistles to turn up the graphic visuals and things like that on the game and stuff? And I think they're starting to realize that if they wanted a PS5 by now, they probably would already have one. So we may see a faster turnaround time. Like Yoshida said, it used to be the old model was 2 years. Yeah, they might port a game over. Now it's like it went from 2 years to year and a half, a year. And I think Spider-Man 2 is like, what was it, 6 or 8 months or something like that?
Yeah, it's getting
It's like
shorter
one
and
of the,
shorter.
yeah. So the big thing that from a company standpoint that they'll benefit from by closing that window gap is that you only have to do advertising once. If you advertise the main game and it's coming both to console and PC at the same time, you only have to do one ad campaign and you'll have all of the hype and the FOMO out there. So the PC guy that may have been on the fence, knows that his friends that have a console already are playing this game, he can go ahead and click the buy now button without having to wait the 6 months to a year. And I know some people will be like, well, what about cannibalization of sales? Well, okay, let's look at it this way. And I know I'm not going to speak for every PlayStation owner that has a PC, but there are going to be certain games that you buy on your PlayStation that probably make more sense to buy on your PlayStation. And then there are going to be certain games that probably make more sense to buy on your PC. Like me having a PlayStation 5, I would much rather have wait. Well, I am waiting for Stellar Blade to come to PC. Why? Mods. No, I'm not a creep or some sort of goofball or something like that. But I would much rather have the freedom of mods for that type of game that they're never going to have on PlayStation. Like they changed some of the outfits, just prior to launch and stuff. You ain't got to worry about that on PC. You can have the original ones. You can have completely new fabricated ones that are see through, whatever your heart desires.
Yep.
Or you can make her into a furry or whatever you want to do. PC is where it's at when it comes to those types of games.
Yep.
So having that being said, if they didn't have that year delay between it being released on console, it would have probably sold a lot more than the million that it sold on console, which it's nothing to sneeze at, but you probably would have sold 2 million more on PC. Now that it's a year later, you still might sell those 2 million, but then again, there might be people that have moved on because since then, there's been a lot of other games that have come to PC as well, and other ones that have mods. Like I know there's another one that's kind of like it looks like it's a knockoff of Stellar Blade or something like that that's coming to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. But that you run that risk of waiting to release it on PC. That other game might, steal the money, or not steal the money, but grab that potential buyer's attention and the funding for that game. And now you lost the sale that you probably would have had easy had you launched it on both platforms at launch. But what are your thoughts as far as like with putting games or putting PlayStation games on PC being like printing money? I mean, sure, there's development costs, but what are your thoughts, and especially on that window as far as it getting smaller and smaller?
Yeah, I think eventually, I think Sony does have some stubbornness as a company, where, especially when the new guard came in and realized that they're just making just interesting business choices that are against something that you can make more money on naturally. I think they have that stubbornness in them, and I think something they're starting to realize is over time and maybe get their fan base more comfortable with is shortening that time frame. Especially like when you mentioned like when you have a game release on console and PC around that same time, you get something like Helldivers 2, which was a great example where it released at the same time, and Helldivers 2 has more players on PC than console. You factor that in with the console market is big, sure, but it's still not as big as PC and mobile. There are more people playing on PC and mobile than there are on console, and the console market is stagnated. So you get the same amount of people, like you mentioned, with uh, like whoever has a PS5, they basically already have one at this point. Whoever is going to invest, so it's like when you release a game like Horizon for PC, that normally they're like, I'm not getting a PlayStation, like I'm chilling over here. But now it's available to them. Sure, like with that quote, you've made a new fan of the franchise. I don't always think that's going to translate to them getting a PlayStation. It could. I'm not saying it can't. It could be like, oh wow, but that is a new customer just on a different platform.
Mm.
Um, I think Xbox also started to realize that, and that's something I'm kind of turning around on too. It's like when you start putting games on other platforms and stuff like that, that doesn't always necessarily mean they're coming back to your ecosystem. It could potentially, like, there's a percentage there, but it just means like wherever this gamer is going to play the game, that's where they want to play. That's where they're comfortable with. Most likely, they're not going to move outside of that. Um, there's that's something I feel like Xbox has realized this generation. Like, well, listen, we have fought PlayStation and Nintendo for generations. Let's just meet them where they're at and go from there. And this is just the business sense. It's not console war stuff. They're just like they're just starting to realize like, hey, you have people who will never who has a PlayStation, they'll never get another console. You have people who have PCs, they'll never buy a console. So Xbox is realizing, hey, let's just put it on these platforms. You get that extra income, and bada bing, bada boom. So PlayStation for a while has been kind of the stubborn one, where they release it like years later or etc. But the hype is gone when you make a decision like that. I'm sure it could still sell well, but as you said, Fuzzy, like if you put a game on Steam and then PlayStation the same day, the hype is high. You have trailers released, you probably had press releases, you've had social media posts, people are talking about it, like podcasters like us. You have reviewers, so people are naturally going to check out the game, and what that does for your sales is way better than people realizing you released it 2 years later on PC. Like, oh, that game came out. Like, oh shoot, what price is it? Like, nah, I'll wait. That just screws. That really does screw you up, in my opinion. And maybe that's something they are realizing as they shorten this window. But yeah, I do believe it is printing money in a way, because you're reaching an audience. And I will say Xbox, PlayStation, something they're really good at. Like their games have been catered to consoles, so they're for years they have been very optimized. The graphics have been incredible compared to PC studios, right? Like Xbox and Sony, they've had minimal specs to work with for years. They really made this triple A experience that for a while was not on PC, in my opinion. And now we're in this age where they are reaching out to different ecosystems. And I feel like for the way Sony is doing it is probably to appease their fan base just a little bit. But I feel like that window is just it's going to keep shrinking until it becomes the norm, and then people just accept it like, oh, well, we already had Last of Us and whatever on PC. So, they're just getting people comfortable with the idea, where Xbox just likes to jump into it like, I don't care, like, deal with it, I guess, which pisses people off. So, yeah, I think, honestly, it's good. Something I would like for them to maybe improve on is the cross-play situation, because when you start to put it on different platforms, you basically have to buy it twice in a lot of ways. Like whereas on Xbox, you buy it once and then you can play it on your PC, pick it up, play it on your Xbox, pick it up, play it on something else. That's something Xbox does really well. And I think as Sony starts to adapt to this model, I know they love people to double dip. But I feel like if they really want people to invest, because they keep adding this thing where you have to play through Sony's servers, like you have to log in and stuff. I think they've started to dial that down a little bit, but I think if they would like for people to eventually invest in a Sony-like store in the future, something that's been rumored for a minute now, they have to make it so you could play on your PlayStation, pick it up, and play on PC eventually, right? So I hope that is in the future, but overall, I like it. I think it's cool. OzzyFan 80 says the ponies will never accept the PC ports. Mentioned that they are starting to come day and date. They act like you just cut their nuts off. Here's the thing, like, I feel like a lot of ponies have moved the goalposts so far at this point with like what they're willing to accept. If just go to a video like 3 years ago and see what they said about Sony, and now they're doing the things that a lot of those Sony fans said that Sony would never do.
Mhm.
This just go back. Some people that you guys are say are ponies, whatever. Go back like 3 years, see what they're saying. Fast forward to now, they're already moving the goalposts. So
Yeah.
I feel like as that PC ports sort of thing get it shrinks, that they'll just have to accept it. Because what else they're gonna do? They're not gonna do anything. Um,
I think the biggest thing as far as when it comes to the PlayStation fan base, they have to understand it's better to get 70% from Steam than 0%.
yep.
0% doesn't put anything more in your pocket. 0% means you're still with the same fan base or customer base that you already have. And if you're saying that's not enough, you're not growing. And businesses are about growth. Every year they want to grow that more than they did the previous year. So if they can get 70% of something as opposed to 0% of something, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
But we'll see how fast that window closes. But I'm one of those that maybe I'm part of the problem. Like I do wish that they would do the dual entitlement like Xbox does. This is Sony. We know they're greedy and they're not going to do it, but I'm probably one of the few that if they release something like Gran Turismo 7 on PC, I'm buying it day one. It I play it a lot on the console, but can you imagine if there's a mod community that embraces it? Like I said, of course, is an old game. Evo is just in early access right now. But if you had GT7 and have that same modding community get a hold of it, you would probably be able to extend the life of that game and probably sell a lot more copies. And the reason why I put that as an example, and there's no shade to Forza in any way, shape, or form, but they do not allow you to mod. Now, if you mod, yeah, you better never go online with that copy, or otherwise it gets pretty much banned right away. But like, I just wanted to do like a paint scheme extraction on the cars and then change it so I can pick the paint schemes for the cars I'm racing against. Because like right now, unless your friends have a certain paint scheme, which a lot of times it's not even the same paint schemes that they have. It's just it goes by the most popular paint schemes for those particular cars. But if you wanted to do like let's say a recreation of a Le Mans 24-hour race from last year with the paint schemes from last year, good luck. You can't do
Yeah.
that unless you race online with other people that pick those other paint schemes. You try to do it in single player, you can't do it. But you can do stuff like that currently in GT7, and then having the mod community take it one step further would be golden for them. I do still wish Forza would bend some of the rules for those that just want to do offline play, but that still takes them. It's still going to take a lot of convincing. But
Yeah.
aside from that, Sony's got to they got to close that window. They got to close that gap. Day and date. Yeah, some of the ponies will cry, but then they'll realize, well, I'm supporting the dev by buying it twice. That'll be the new goalpost.
Yeah, that'll be the new thing. I could honestly see them saying that. That's actually really funny. Gamer by Choice says, I've noticed not just gaming, but world as a whole, narratives and goalposts have moved a lot. A lot of people seem to parrot narratives and talking points rather than what benefits them. I mean, yeah, if you like a certain thing, like let's say like Halo, for example, like I love Halo. Um, and if they don't have a certain feature or something that they said they would have, and then but you love Halo. There's certain things you're willing to just be like, well, all right, I'll still play, but I won't like it. There's certain things in gaming media. I'm sure that goalposts constantly moves. Um, if you're a fan of something, sometimes you're willing to shoot it away, but yeah, we'll see what Sony ends up doing. Fuzzy Tomato says, I've kind of flipped around on this. They only publish like one first party studio game a year exclusive. They aren't really leaving all that much money on the table considering what they already make. That's a good point. Especially like
Yeah.
Sony right now, they are really relying on third parties to lead the PS5 generation right now. Um, they have made complaints about Microsoft, with Call of Duty before all that stuff happened with like how they're managing. I feel like their pipeline for how they are managing studios honestly is a little broken. How much reliance they have on other people is not good business sense in my opinion. To basically be like, well, if Call of Duty, like if we don't own Call of Duty anymore, we basically use that to fund our games. Like I can see that as an addition, like cool. You can like Xbox has basically said that yeah, some of these deals putting on PlayStation has given us the ability to fund our games and stuff like that. But with Xbox, it's more of an addition. It's not a requirement. It's not like
Yeah.
this has to happen in order for me to give you a game. Like you have to buy another remaster in order for us to make a game in general. I just feel like future since that's not going to be good for them. But you are right in the way where they're still making bank and stuff like that with their console sales. They do make lesser percentage with some of these third party things, and that's kind of what I'm not worried about, but I'm just curious long term how that's going to affect them. So we'll see. Like Sony,
Yeah.
like in terms of like finances, they are not hurting for finances in terms of where they are placed in the market. Like Nintendo's number one. Nintendo gets away with murder, like in a lot of ways. Like they never put down the prices of their games. It's just like always 50, 60, whatever. Um, their games look like potatoes and stuff like that. Beautiful potatoes, some of them. And then you get Sony, who can also start to get away with not having the greatest first party lineup the past few years, but they are going by brand recognition. People are buying the heck out of their consoles. So it's a weakness for them right now. But you play to your strengths, I guess, and I feel like they're starting to figure that out, and that's why they're starting to release on PC as well. And Xbox, something that I seen recently was they were like pulling out of Brazil and stuff, and I was actually gonna make this a topic, but I'm just now remembering it. I don't like that, um, especially if you're like consoles still your plans, you still want people to invest in your ecosystem universally. Um, yeah, not a fan of that. So maybe we'll talk. I'll have a whole topic about that in the next show,
So
maybe.
so PlayStation's pulling out of Brazil.
No, Xbox.
Oh
So the
wait,
Xbox
I thought that was one
consoles.
of their biggest markets, or like their in their top 10 markets or something.
No, I don't think so.
I maybe it's Mexico then. It's like their third or fourth or
Oh
something. But I
man,
thought
yeah.
Brazil was up there. But then again, I do remember part of the problem with Brazil was the taxes,
Oh yeah,
or
where it had
maybe it
like
was the import
crazy.
costs or something like because that was when they remember like I guess in US dollars, Series S was like $700 equivalent or
Yeah.
600 or something. It was something ridiculous, but I
Was
think
that
that
that was
was
Brazil, right? Yeah, I guess it
yeah.
was. Yeah, I wonder if
Brazil
there's
had
something
something
there.
like that, and India had something like that because of it being, I guess, either made in China or something to that effect, where they have some sort of like tariffs that they put on it.
Yeah, maybe there's something there. I'll research that a bit because I wonder if that is the case, and I could totally see that because I remember Xbox is being super expensive there, and maybe they just figured it wasn't worth it. Like maybe they're paying way more to just produce consoles in Brazil, and maybe their economy is just like Safo. I was about to say that maybe
Mhm.
the economy is just kind of broken over there, and so they just pulled out. That's the reason. But if they're pulling out for another reason, like it's like it's you know not enough people are buying it, then I don't agree with that decision. But if they're pulling out for those reasons, I kind of get it. But definitely we'll look into that. I just thought I seen that report. I'm like, ooh, I don't like that because if consoles are still important to Xbox's vision, then that negates that that negates that a bit, and that's already a worry for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't be a point for people to be like, um so yeah, I'll keep my eye on that news. But appreciate everyone for dropping on by. Fuzzy, is there any lasting thoughts you had on this topic?
No, I think overall, if we look at where Sony is headed, yeah, they only have a handful of first party games that they're releasing each year, whether it's one or two, if you want to include MLB on there and stuff. Um, I'm still, although I'm probably off by a year or two, I'm still on that hill for either Amazon or Apple acquiring them. Like
Mm,
I don't think they're in desperate need, but I
yeah,
do think they wouldn't mind a partnership with a sugar daddy that has similar Microsoft bucks kind of thing
right.
to kind of help fund some of the stuff that they want to grow in. So I could totally see something like that happening.
Yeah, I can see that happening as well. Like there's been so many cases. I keep seeing like Sony fans being like, yo, they're gonna buy Katakawa, and they're gonna do all this different stuff, and then what ends up happening is like, oh yeah, we just bought like 2% of something. Um, so yeah, definitely in the boat. Or Sony isn't. They're not a $1 trillion company. I feel like people keep forgetting that they're $1 billion. But they financially they're not hurting. But I feel like there's certain business decisions they're making where it's kind of hurt. Yeah. Um, everybody, appreciate y'all for dropping on by. I see Talos Ray saying great show. Appreciate you, man. Ray Old says, didn't they have a game show in Brazil in 2023 to show their support for the region? I don't know. I think so. Fuzzy Tomato
Yeah.
says, I don't think they're completely pulling out of Brazil. I think they just pulled Series X, but the S is still there. Either way, like I will get it more if it's about the economy and stuff like that. But if their vision is to grow, like they're basically saying they want to grow from the console. That's what they're kind of saying right now. I'm not in Brazil. I don't know how many people are buying it in Brazil. I assume it's not a lot, but um I do remember that report where the Series S and X or whatever were like very expensive. I do remember us talking about that in one of the shows, but I will look into that. But yeah, I'm always I'm just a fan of gaming. I love Xbox's vision and stuff for stuff, but I'm always gonna call it out if I feel like something is hypocritical or something like that. So I just thought I would bring it up. Sappho says they could have bought Katakawa, but some reporter got excited, leaked the deal that shot Katakawa's stock through the roof until they couldn't afford it. But yeah, I mean, that sounds logical.
Yeah.
But I think this has happened a couple times where Sony is like, "Oh, they're about to buy this company," and it's like they bought 2%. It's just, yeah, I just seen that happen a couple times. Fillmore, he said, "Dang, I'm late. I'll have to replay it." Yep, go ahead, replay the show. Appreciate you for dropping on by, man. Um, Fuzzy says they sold like 2 million consoles worldwide last year. They probably sold like 25 in Brazil. Hey, 25 is still 25 people. But no, I get what you're saying.
It was more than 2 million. There's some fudge in the numbers as far as what I'm sure Fuzzy can take a look at some of the posts out there, but there's more than 2 million that they sold worldwide, it's probably closer to double that.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that too. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's something we'll talk about on the next show actually, because I want to do some diving research into what's kind of going on there. Because I just seen like a headline or a topic where it's just like Xbox is pulling out of Brazil. I'm like, what? And that's
Mhm.
all I saw. So some of you guys are clarifying in the comments. Um, but just know that if that's what's happening and it has nothing to do with the economy, or whatever, they're just like, it's not worth it. Then I'm not a fan of that. Just know that's my standpoint. But um, let's go ahead and end it. So, ending it with my co-host, the Fuzz. Thanks for joining me as always in the co-captain chair. Please tell people where they can find you on social media.
Oh, as always, always awesome to be on this podcast with you. Love doing this every Sunday. Um, Man, it's just this is like the best time as far as to be a gamer. So much out there to play. I encourage everybody to tackle that backlog and find as many games as you can enjoy out there because there's a ton to play. But look forward to doing this next Sunday as well. But for those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, just follow me on pretty much all social media except Facebook, Fuzzy_Belvedere. You can also find me as well as the 3-bit if he's available tomorrow on FSP 9 o'clock tomorrow night. But also Double Barrel Gaming will be doing a Xbox lunch break special at 11:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, and then we're going to do a co-stream for the ID at Xbox at I believe that's like around 12:30. The show starts at 1, but we're going to start up at 12:30 for that. And I think Annapurna is doing a
Mm.
stream earlier. Like they do their stream at I think 12 or something like that Eastern
Tomorrow?
for the upcoming games.
And who's streaming that? Sorry, I missed. Like,
I don't know if anybody's going to be streaming Annapurna's
okay,
one, but Mr. Boomstick will be streaming the one for ID at Xbox.
okay, cool. Um, So I might be available around that time. So maybe I'll hit up Boom. We'll definitely see. But I will be there for FSP. So stay tuned for Pixelated Echoes, basically part two tomorrow. I know Mav has been feeling a little sick, so we'll see how he feels in the
Yeah.
morn. But it'll be good. So everybody go check us out in Fun Speculation tomorrow if he's feeling all better. And as always, we end the show with like a thank you to you guys, to everyone who follows our content. If you guys agreed with us or not, let us know in the comment section down below on what it was that I or Fuzzy said. If I said something on the show and you're like 3-bit, you're wrong, hit me up. Let us know. And let us know what we could do to improve the show. All ears here. For our audio listeners, be sure to tell others about the show. Leave a like, tell your friends, neighbors, all the peeps. So all support is appreciated, but never expected. Love y'all. I'm 3-bit signing off. See you guys on the next episode of the Pixelated Echoes. Bye, y'all.